Hello traders, welcome to the weekly outlook and setups volume 248. Iliya here. You know what we're gonna be doing, having a look at the markets, how they developed this week, what kind of opportunities we had, and most importantly, what we can expect for the upcoming week. Now, this week was actually quite nice, but the majority of the weekly candle developed during the last 2 days of the week. Thursday, of course, we had the CPI. I was waiting until Thursday for the CPI to come out, which pretty much meant that the only trading day for me was Thursday after CPI and then potentially Friday. Unfortunately, I didn't trade on Friday, although there was a lovely trade. So no trades for me this week, which is perfectly fine. Getting ready for the next 2 weeks with all the important news right now out of the way. It is time to focus. So let's have a look what the markets will have for us next week. Alright, let's start first with the news. Now on Monday we're having a speech from Powell, and then we have this news released here at 3:30, which means that Monday could already be tradable. So keep that in mind, although Mondays I usually tend to skip them. Tuesday we have CPI news here, a lot of CPIs for the CAD. I do see a lot of CAD news here. No, not really, it's just on Friday and Tuesday. And yeah, then we have this core retail sales on Tuesday. So Tuesday is definitely tradable. On Wednesday, we have NZD and GBP CPI. So if you're trading the pound, for example, maybe it's a good idea to be waiting for Wednesday to come out if you're gonna trade like GBP USD or any GBP pair. And then of course we have a couple of USD news, which also makes US session pretty tradable. On Thursday, we have for me personally, the highlight of the week. That is the interest rate decision and the press conference from the European Central Bank. And then, of course, part of that, we have unemployment claims for the US. So Thursday is also going to be super volatile. And I would expect, once again, on Euro USD, for example, the majority of the move to start happening on Thursday. All right. Sometimes the market could potentially drive the market into some sort of a liquidity point on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. And then Thursday with the news could also potentially reverse. So there are, of course, a lot of ways that the market can develop. This is why it's always important to flow with the markets and not really try to forecast too much. And then on Friday, we have pound retail sales and just CAD news, so no USD news. So, but of course, it still does look tradable. So this week, I would say it's pretty nice. It's pretty nice. We have USD news almost every day, apart from Friday. We have a very huge news release to be awaiting for, which is the Euro interest rate. We have a couple of CPIs thrown right there. Looks pretty good. So let's jump into the technicals. I'm personally not going to worry about anything apart from the Euro refinancing rate here, pretty much the interest rate decision. And then, of course, after this, it's pretty much everything is green. All right, starting with the Dixie. Now, if you have a look at the previous outlook, we actually called shorts on the DXY, and all the outlook, pretty much the setups that we called out last week played out beautifully. So we're having right now a very nice bearish monthly candle printing here on the DXY. So are we getting a reversal right now? Are we going to start attacking all of these lows? Like the first potential liquidity target that we're very, very, very close to right now is the previous monthly low. And then on the monthly time frame, all the way down there. So are we starting to get a bearish dollar? Potentially. Because you can see on the weekly time frame, we had this push higher with this bullish imbalance here. It looks like the market wanted to really attack these highs. This is what I was thinking. But then we printed this very sharp, massive candle lower. And on the daily time frame, we already started shifting, as you're going to say. And this week, we are creating a bearish weekly imbalance. However, this is one of these breakaway gaps in which, for example, you're having that candle 3 of the imbalance push massively away from the imbalance. So then it's not very efficient. It's not very logical for the market to pull back all the way up to the weekly. So personally, I am bearish on the weekly. Looks pretty good. This is my first target. And then, of course, we're going to be going potentially for something a little bit lower. I do see a weekly target here. So very likely the market is going to attack these two lows. Now, the question is, how are we going to be getting there? Well, you can see on the daily time frame, as I told you from the last weekly outlook, I wanted to wait for Monday to potentially form a daily imbalance. It did that. Tuesday tapped, Wednesday consolidated, pretty much showed us that the market actually doesn't want to reverse. And then Thursday CPI, it just dropped. And then on Friday, I really wanted to trade on Friday, but I thought, well, could really today continue massively pushing lower towards these liquidity points? And it did. It did what I did not expect to happen, but that's perfectly fine. So also on the daily time frame right now, we're having this massive daily imbalance. Once again, the candle 3 is super large. So can we really have something like this? It is possible, but I wouldn't really expect that. And then as we start dropping onto the hourly time frame, this is once again, we're having that very big chain of imbalances, right? We have weekly, we have daily, and we have hourly. Hourly, I don't think so. Now, when you have such a situation, you usually want to trade from the most recent one. So for example, I mean, not from the most recent one, but from the one that is on the lower time frames, especially when the market is drawing into a macro liquidity like this weekly zone. So after we take this zone, which is a massive daily swing low here, a daily old low, a weekly low as well, after we take this one, then I could be looking for some sort of a bigger pullback. But right now, I do believe the DXY could potentially rush into the lows even on Monday. So I would say a setup like that looks pretty nice. Yeah, makes pretty much a lot of sense to me. And then after these liquidity points are taken, I'm just going to be waiting to evaluate. Is it going to continue printing daily bearish and hourly bearish, or is it going to stop? So then that could mean the market can start pulling back all the way into that daily. And then if that daily fails, it's going to pull back into the weekly. And if the weekly fails, it's going to reverse and seek liquidity. Okay. So usually how these imbalances are going to work out is, of course, you have a FOH. If the FOH doesn't respond and starts printing the opposite, that means the market is seeking the daily. Then from the daily, it could reverse. But even if the daily doesn't hold and you start seeing printing the opposite, then that means it's going to seek the weekly. So it's kind of this chain reaction that is happening. But again, keeping it simple, this is my overall outlook. Quick shorts into these lows right here. And after we take out these lows, then of course it's all about waiting and really seeing what is going to happen. Are we going to keep expanding lower with daily bearish imbalances, with hourly bearish imbalances, or are we going to start slowly shifting bullish? And then of course we can start targeting areas like this. So bearish bias for now, but of course, watch out for those major liquidity points. Looking at Euro USD, pretty much the reverse of the DXY. We're having a very nice monthly candle so far, potentially attacking that previous monthly high. And then we have this monthly high here dropping onto the weekly time frame. We are also having a massive weekly bullish imbalance. Now, this one was a little bit tricky because it opened up with a gap. So on Euro USD, you did not really have a daily bullish imbalance, but on the DXY, you had it, which was definitely a confluence to potentially go long. And again, as you can see, I skipped the first 3 days. They were consolidating. Then on Thursday, the market actually rushed with the CPI. So only Friday was tradable. And I had 3 or 4 community members that actually smashed this long. But personally, I didn't really take it, hesitated a little bit because of some factors that I can, of course, show you. So currently, weekly bullish, and we're also having a daily bullish here, which is quite great. And the market is reaching for this weekly high, okay? So I really think the market could potentially just ping that weekly high. And then the question is it going to continue impulsing above to make new highs and to potentially attack that high? Or is it going to break that weekly high? Right, break, come on, break, and then potentially start showing us signs that it doesn't want to continue. So then I can presume that it's going to pull back into that daily zone. Okay, so those are my 2 outcomes on Euro USD. A very recent one, of course, will be to attack this high. And you can see right now we're having this 4-hourly zone. And on Monday, we can just tap and go. It could even happen very early on Monday. So again, we'll really see. It looks quite nice, right? You can see how nicely we're actually closing above this 4-hourly high, right? Perfectly aligning with a very nice break and retest here. That's quite nice, okay? So this is Euro USD. I'm just going to keep it as simple as that. I am bullish bias until this high. As this high is taken, then it's time to evaluate. Are we going to stay above and keep breaking above with imbalances so I then can continue looking for longs? Or are we going to come in, sweep it, start printing 4-hourly bearish to then guide me into that daily? Those are my 2 situations on EU. Again, I never forecast. I just jump into the morning. What is the market telling me? That's what it's telling me. All right, I go with that. The long trade that I was taking was from this 4-hourly zone. Unfortunately, here, it was super choppy, and I thought the market's gonna first seek out this low in order to then start moving higher. So this is why I did not take that long, but there were one of our 5-minute entries, the Asian liquidation strategy that we have. We also had our VFT strategy here. So pretty much the trade was executed from here, stop loss below like that, and then 2 hour was very easily achieved. And then after we had PPI, the market still offered a setup. But again, I usually really don't like trading on Fridays. Maybe that's a little mindset shift that I have to make, because if I usually lose money on Friday, I feel like a dumbass because I could have just taken it off. But in weeks like this, when the majority of the move happened on Thursday, and then usually the next day could potentially continue because it has to reach for the liquidity. So then, of course, yes, we still tapped into that 1 hourly zone, and you can see on the 1 minute here, we actually did have a setup. The market ended up playing out. I also had 2 members taking this long as well. So quite a successful Friday for the community, but personally, I did not take it. Just decided to stay patient, call it a week without really engaging, and focus and protect my capital for the incoming week. So it looks pretty good. Bullish bias on EU. Let's see how it goes. The call on GU from the last weekly outlook is just beautiful, and look at this one go. It is just rushing like there is no tomorrow, right? We are taking this monthly high, we're taking the previous monthly high, and right now we are headed towards that high. Do my line change? Okay. Extremely bullish monthly candle, taking monthly liquidity. Now, when such a massive liquidity point is taken, usually you would expect some sort of a pullback. But looking at it right now, like look at the last 2 weekly candles. It is just crazy. And if you look on the monthly, and even if you look like on the weekly, there is nothing to potentially stop price from going all the way up towards that high. So I am rather bullish. Now, it's not just gonna go there with a straight line. Look at this expansion candle already. That is a potential weekly bullish imbalance that could get formed this week. So then potentially next week we can tap in, and that could continue guiding us higher. Can this week really massively continue higher? Well, we have GBP CPI. We do have a lot of news. Definitely possible. The thing that I don't want to see, of course, is for the market to pull back towards that level, which is going to invalidate a new weekly bullish imbalance, which is absolutely nonsense. If this happens, I'm even going to look for shorts, not for longs. Right now, of course, we do have a daily bullish imbalance. So quite similar to EU. The market is this one even started on Wednesday, because we had also, as I told you in the weekly outlook, wait for Monday to make the imbalance. Tuesday tapped it, and even Wednesday started running. Also, there was a nice setup that some of my guys took here, the long CPI, and then Friday just continued to rally. So very nice setup on GU this week. Daily bullish imbalance. Now, once again, this candle is also expanding. Could it also make a new daily bullish imbalance on Monday? That's what we have to see. And then, of course, in the forward time frame, you are also having, for example, this guy here, and you even have that guy here, and even one below. So I'm not gonna mark all of them, right? But you could definitely do that. But usually, if the first one fails, then it's gonna seek something more. For example, then it's gonna come in towards this zone, which is your wholesale to buy demand zone, right? So if that one fails, it could react, then it can come in here. If that one fails, then of course I would expect for it to rush to the daily. I think it's a little bit too high. Taking monthly liquidity, I usually expect like some sort of even a weekly rebalance. I would even expect a daily rebalance, but of course, if we have a new daily imbalance being created right now on Monday, I could apply the exact same setup as last week. Wait for Monday to make a daily bullish imbalance, let it tap on Tuesday, and then potentially Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday could just expand. Exactly the same as it happened last week. Monday created the imbalance, Tuesday tapped, and then we have the expansion. So if Monday this week creates the daily bullish imbalance right there, then wait for Tuesday to tap, and then it could still expand on Wednesday, Thursday, which is where we also have the GBP CPI. So GU just looks absolutely long bias. The main question is, where is it going to go higher from? And this is why, once again, guys, you are having the zones, the POIs, but you also need entry models. And the entry models are mainly used to confirm that these zones are going to hold. So, for example, you cannot just blindly plot a buy here and expect for the market to go. You have to go and confirm it in the lower time frame, because the lower time frame is actually going to show you whether this hourly zone is actually going to follow through. Okay, so the GU is super bullish. either continuing from one of these folly zones, but if it actually starts printing folly bearish, it could drive us into the daily, and then from that daily it could potentially go, or it's either gonna make a brand new daily bullish on Monday and then it's gonna go from there. So bullish bias, you gotta really wait to see how it's gonna play out. Let's have a look at Aussie dollar, which has been quite choppy for a while. Now the monthly candle is very nicely driving higher to potentially the only thing that I see as liquidity is this massive monthly high. Dropping then to the weekly time frame, you know that recently we tapped into this weekly zone. And then as I told you, it was a little bit low probability to go long because we had to wait for the reaction. And you can see the market actually reacted and still impulsed higher. And for the first time in quite a while, we're actually having something on AU. So for example, this is an old imbalance right now. This is filled. We can see that the market is not going to react from that. And at the same time, we're having this very nice weekly bullish imbalance aligning with this very nice sell to buy area. That is your overall order block. That's your overall demand, right? It's bullish, looks very nice, but then you drop to the lower time frame, and this is where it gets a little bit shitty. Like here, there wasn't an imbalance bullish to potentially go long, and then it chop, and then even CPI, massive rejection, and then Friday tries to continue. It printed a minuscule daily imbalance here to just maybe tell us that, yeah, sure, I'm also a little bit bullish, but not as much as EU and GU. It does look good, but at the same time, it does not look so good. So I'm also bullish bias on AU. However, I think that GU and EU are a lot better. Here you can see extreme chop. Then it tries to push up, no 4-hour imbalances. Right now it has this tiny little guy, but again, if I just look at this price action, like that, if I just open that chart and I see this, I don't want to trade it. Like compare this to this one, clear daily bullish, clear hourly bullish, structured price action, nice, impulsive, this one as well. And then you see this, ugh. You know that meme, ooh brother, that's the one. So Aussie dollar, skipping, not very much interested. If we start getting maybe daily bullish imbalances or clear hourly bullish imbalances to get us, for example, closer to that high, then I could potentially look into it. But for now, EU and GU just look a lot better. So why would I focus on AU? So to me, AU is still a skip, although it's starting to look a little bit better. Looking at the monthly candle on NZUSD, you can see this pair is still sleeping, so it's not moving. It took out the previous monthly low, which is all right. But then after that, we are chopping. We had a very nice expansion candle last week, and then this week bearish. It's also coming from that weekly bullish imbalance, which is quite great, but somehow it's failing to follow through higher. It's just chopping. Like, look at this piece of price action. This is chop. Now, of course, just because it's a chop, that does not mean it's not gonna turn into momentum anytime soon. Now here we have this daily bullish imbalance. The market printed that from the weekly. On the way down, we didn't print anything other bearish, which is very nice. You can see here, for example, that was a very massive bearish candle. In this case, this is your invalidation level. So if the market prints a bearish imbalance here, then I could forecast that this low is gonna go. But you can see on the next day, the market actually does not make a new daily bearish imbalance, which to me is also a bullish sign. And it's kind of trying to start following through bullish, but it's still failing. So on this one, I definitely need a little bit more time. And I think, for example, if eventually this is the drawn liquidity on that pair, I would like to trade that pair when it gets all the way up here, to like really show me that it wants to go and tap this high. Right now, it's still 50-50. It's still consolidating, nothing on the daily yet. Although we're tapping, for example, into this sell to buy here, into daily bullish imbalance, it's starting to react a little bit. And on the 4-hourly time frame, it's also super shitty here in the 4-hourly. It came in super bearish, it came out bullish, then it came in super bearish again. And yeah, it does have some signs, but personally, similar to AU, I just want to see this one start flowing a little bit better. Like it's a consolidation still, so I really want to see it, for example, tap into hourly, tap in and make some daily zones, expand higher, and then as I start seeing it expanding higher, maybe it's waiting for some sort of news on the NZD. I do think we had some NZD CPI, and yeah, right, that's it. So just NZD CPI. So this pair is potentially waiting for something, but waiting for it to get momentous, similar for AU, and then I'm gonna touch those two. So for now, they are a skip. Focus goes on to EU and GU still. All right, let's have a look at Mr. Gold. It is pushing very nicely higher on the monthly time frame, potentially, of course, our drawn liquidity being that monthly high. Dropping onto the weekly time frame, we're also having a very nice bullish sign. That is the creation of this weekly bullish imbalance. We took out that weekly high last week, and you can see we already reacted from it by printing this very massive large wick coming all the way down, and then we still expanded higher. So this to me right now, it does have a potential easy move into pretty much all-time highs. Okay, so I am definitely bullish on gold. Now the question is, how are we gonna get there? All right, well, we have a very nice daily bullish imbalance. Okay, perfectly resonating with this OB as well, this very nice sell candle before this very big buy, demand zone, whatever you like to call it. And yeah, so gold definitely looks good. Now the question is, are we gonna do something like that? Or are we just going to expand and then try to chase the 4-hourly time frame? That is the question that you have to be answering, and that's what you have to be waiting for. Because you can see, for example, just at the market closure, we have this 4-hourly bullish imbalance. Okay, so the market is either going to hold from this and start pushing higher. Okay, so monitor this, or it's gonna fail this, and then that's gonna show you that it's gonna come to the daily, and then as it comes to the daily, then from there we can potentially start pushing higher. So those are my two outlooks on gold. Those are my two scenarios. Either long from that fall zone, but of course it's Monday, it's still a little bit early, right? So definitely give it some more confirmation. Then as we start breaking above these highs, see if the market actually closes strongly above with new fall imbalances to then continue going higher, right? If not, then that means that it could want to potentially pull back a little bit deeper. Okay, that's gold. Very bullish. I don't really expect for the market to pull back into that weekly zone, so don't look for it. Focus on the fall and the daily. Okay, and then yes, of course, the third scenario will be for the market to tap into the daily, to react, to fail to follow through. Then we can look for the weekly. Okay, but first the market has to fail those two first barriers, right? The hourly and the daily, and then potentially when those two fail, then it's gonna seek the weekly. So that's gold, bullish bias, two scenarios. Let's see which one plays out. Let's have a look at the JPY. Some brand new development here. We're having a nice bearish monthly candle printing right now, invalidating a new potential monthly bullish imbalance, which is quite interesting because we don't really have then anything else to rebalance on the monthly, which is once again very interesting here. We had this weekly bullish, and now we have this weekly bullish, and if you have a look at that last month weekly candle, it doesn't look like it wants to hold, but again, this one is still intact. We also have this zone, this weekly sell to buy, this order block, last sale candle before the big move higher. Also, at the same time, we're having this invalidation level, so the market could potentially this week create a weekly bearish imbalance, so then we can potentially even start shorting it next week. So USD JPY after the CPI started rolling down very nicely. Is it time for it to reverse maybe after a super massive push? Maybe, right? Daily bearish imbalance also to support that overall bearish narrative. There's the daily. And on the hourly time frame, we also have a 4-hourly bearish. So this one looks quite a lot like the DXY, of course. We actually tapped into that OB. We already took the reaction. And right now we're still pushing lower. So to me, as the JPY starts looking bearish, we are still, I think we are not even getting the first signs. Because we had like these two weekly bullish imbalances. The market right now doesn't look like it wants to hold from them. However, this is the first candle that actually taps into this weekly zone and into this weekly OB. So it could still give a reaction next week. But then if next week forms a weekly bearish imbalance, and then potentially the week after this could be short sales. So USD JPY is slightly bit 50-50. It's definitely giving me a lot of short signs. Now, of course, this is going to play out like this from the volatile time frame. We have to see, the chain effect, right? If the market taps the 4H, if it fails, it's going to drive us into the daily. And then the daily could potentially react. I would love to see a a weekly bearish imbalance created this week. So then next week you can potentially go short from it. But for now, short bias on USD JPY. You know that I don't trade JPY pairs. But again, very similar to the DXY. We'll be looking to see how this follow zone holds. If it follows through, then you can keep following continuations lower. If it doesn't follow through, then you can look for the market to pull back into that daily. Okay, so that's my outlook on USD JPY. It's definitely showing us some sign of a reversal, but I do not want to count out the longs, because that could just be like the liquidity grab mechanism to pull us back into the weekly imbalance, into the weekly OB, into this overall like range that we have here, and then potentially to start shifting higher. So don't rush to be catching the top. The higher probability trades will be if we really start seeing the bearishness. Like, wait to see a bearish trend. Because here, if you actually had a look at this, we could have said, oh, reversal. Right? But then you can start seeing slowly the market starts climbing back. All right? Exactly the same here. Whoa, massive flush, reversal. And all of a sudden, the market pushes higher. Okay? So those are just first signs of a reversal. We really have to wait and see how the market is going to react from this weekly zone, how it's going to react from the weekly OB. Is it going to continue following through bearish with new daily bearish imbalances, and then to potentially say we're short? For now, be patient. With that UJ reaction, we're likely going to see it across all the JPY pairs. We can see Euro JPY also, but this one is actually right now just perfectly pulling back into the weekly imbalance. Right? It's just perfect. It's also retesting that wick to the left. It just looks very good for a long setup. So I would definitely say the JPYs are not bearish yet. Unfortunately, we have a very big supply and demand sandwich right here. We are having that weekly bullish and then daily bearish coming into it. So this is where the market is going to be stuck between those two zones. And then on the hourly time frame, we do have, for example, this hourly bearish, but again, this one is right now tapping into a very strong support. Very strong support. This weekly bullish imbalance. Of course, we also have this one below it that also has this sell to buy. That's the actual OB, right? So it could reach a little bit lower, but let's see how it's going to respond from that weekly zone. To me right now, Euro Yen is 50-50 because it has weekly bullish, but the daily and the hourly time frame are still bearish. So firstly, we have to wait for that hourly time frame to fail, to tap us into the daily, then for the daily to react, and for the daily to fail, and then you're gonna get the proper setup, right? Because right now it's just a little bit 50-50, and when I do have these supply and demand sandwich situations, we do have a very specific setup for trading those in the Fanatic team, but in the case of a weekly and the daily supply and demand sandwich, it is a very long wait. So wait on it, see what the market is gonna tell you. Will it tell you actually that it wants to continue lower for a little bit by holding from this hourly zone? That's good, but it's gonna tell you that it's gonna fail it to drive into the daily. Then of course you have to wait for the daily reaction and then see how it goes from there. Okay, so Euro Yen 50-50. Again, USD JPY is giving at that short signal, but that could just be fake. So really not raising my hopes too much for shorts. I'm still long bias on EJ actually. GBP USD and the overall GBP being super strong, we can see that GJ is also pushing higher very nicely, and it actually just created a weekly bullish imbalance. So this weekly bullish imbalance looks a very nice target. It looks like we're potentially gonna tap into that this week. We also have one just below it, which is also very nice. So let's see, daily time frame, it is not giving us a daily bearish imbalance, which is actually good. So if you're picking to trade a JPY, then it's going to be GJ, if you're actually picking to go long. I do believe that we could potentially tap into that weekly zone this week, because literally we don't have anything on the daily right now. And then on the hourly time frame, we're actually having a hourly order flow with this massive hourly imbalance here. The market filled it, and right now we're getting this very tiny hourly zone. So my setup on GJ, hourly zone tap, driving us into the weekly, and then pretty much looking for a reversal from the weekly. That's it. Still bullish, which definitely makes me think that UJ and EJ are probably just pulling back right now, not really reversing. GJ doesn't have a daily bearish imbalance like, for example, EJ does. So in that case, GJ is actually going to be higher probability to trade because there is less resistance here, right? But then, of course, we first have to tap into that weekly zone, and then from there, maybe look to continue higher. That's GJ, rather simple setup. Let's see how it goes. All right, let's have a look at the indices. SPX 500 just continuing to push higher, creating a monthly bullish imbalance that could be very nice for next month. On the weekly time frame, we're also creating a weekly bullish imbalance, which is also very nice. That could be something that we could look for the market to pull back into eventually if there is nothing to stop it on the daily. And as you can see on the daily, pretty much the only thing to stop it was this daily bullish imbalance. And we tapped into it and we already took out the all-time highs once again. Yeah, whoa, that was a nice setup actually here. I'm not trading indices right now, but look at that. Just tapped in, whoop, all-time highs taken. And when it's like at all-time highs like this, it's always a little bit tricky. And as I keep saying with indices, it's always good to get some sort of a pullback, maybe into that weekly zone, and then trade that weekly buy into that high. So right now, it's just very tricky for me to say what's gonna happen. I honestly have no idea. We have this forward imbalance to potentially hold price and push it higher. Now, if this forward imbalance fails, then that's gonna mean that the market is gonna drop to the weekly because there is nothing on the daily to stop it anymore. Okay, so this is my situation on SPX, or of course a continuation from here. Those are the two scenarios. This forward zone is pretty key because this is pretty much right now the only thing to stop price. But looking at how the market actually took out the all-time high here, so I'm just in, whoop, out immediately. Definitely looks like a liquidity grab for me. So as I said, we could expect a potential pullback week right now, although the weekly candle is like in terms of the formation, it's a breakaway gap, which means that the candle 3 is just running away, a runaway gap right from that weekly bullish imbalance. But usually then there should be something on the daily to stop it. We already tapped on the daily, we already pushed higher. So right now, again, the only thing to stop price and push it higher is this volatile zone. And if this volatile zone fails, weekly zone is the target. Let's see how it goes. Nasdaq next on the list, monthly time frame, also building up a bullish monthly imbalance, which could be very nice for next month. On the weekly time frame as well, so very similar to the SPX, I do think reaching for that weekly bullish imbalance is going to be very nice. You know, we're coming from a previous weekly bullish imbalance, very nice, creating a new one. This is pretty much signifying order flow. Dropping onto the daily time frame here, we had this daily bullish that the market tapped into and reacted. So nothing bearish was printed, which is great. So this one is a little bit tricky because unlike SPX that took out all-time highs and reversed, this one didn't really go to the all-time highs. It's currently having that weekly bullish imbalance, and once again, the only thing to stop it right now is this forwarding. So very similar setup to the SPX. The market is either going to push from that volatile zone and keep attacking all-time highs, or it's going to fail that volatile zone, then tap into the weekly, and then of course from the weekly we have to be looking for new setups to still potentially go higher. So I'm still bullish bias on Nasdaq. Could it start consolidating to potentially close that monthly candle and create that very nice monthly bullish imbalance that we can trade next month? Definitely possible, all right? But as long as we keep going higher, as long as we have, for example, weekly imbalances to trade from, as long as we have space to be trading towards all-time highs, if we tap this weekly bullish imbalance, it's going to be quite nice to be trading all the way up here. So this is my outlook on Nasdaq. Very similar to SPX. I actually do like Nasdaq a little bit more because the SPX kind of took all-time highs, and right now it's more 50-50, but this one is still reacting from that daily and it has a fall. So again, the fall time frame is going to do the job. It's going to do the job and push price higher. If not, weekly, and then we still look for longs. Let's see. After 2 months of choppiness, US 30 finally decided to make a little bit of a move. So it's currently once again at all-time highs. Still extremely choppy. It is just once again taking all-time highs right now. So I am a little bit skeptical to trade it. So come on, all-time highs. Nice bullish weekly candle. In order for me to continue going long on this one, I would like to see for the market to not tap this line, which is going to invalidate a new bullish weekly imbalance. And then on the daily time frame, what we have is finally daily imbalance created. And right now it's just a very nice wick piercing through all-time highs. I don't like it, honestly. I never like US 30. Like, look at this price action. Like, look at this. All of a sudden it decides to pump, then it chops, and then it still decides to pump on Friday. So I just don't like it. I don't even know why I cover it, but I guess it goes with the other ones. So kind of a conflict, right? That is US 30. It does have this fourly bullish imbalance that can also continue higher from, but if it fails, then it's gonna come and seek the daily. Exactly the same as the other ones, but the other ones are having a weekly imbalance while this one does not. This one has a daily that is quite below. Now, keep in mind, if we maintain a little bit of a strength, we could create a daily bullish, although I kind of doubt it. If we do make a daily bullish here, then I'm going to be more inclined to buy, right, to take a long. But let's see how it plays out. Let's see how it plays out. To me, once again, NASDAQ and SPX are just always better than US 30. So yeah, take note of this. All right, making a full circle all the way back. Risk on perspective right now, the market is pretty much selling off the dollars. We are having clear liquidity targets. We're having clear zones to also go short from. DXY shorts, my favorite setups for next week are, of course, on Euro USD. Keep driving us into these liquidity targets. That's the first one. Then we have, of course, that one. Hourly, daily, and weekly zones. All we have to be careful next week is which zones are actually going to hold and what zones are going to be created. So Euro USD hourly is gonna push higher. If it fails, it's gonna pull back to the daily. Is the daily gonna hold? If not, then it's gonna pull back to the weekly. You see, you have that chain reaction here. GU, same story. Are we gonna make a daily bullish imbalance on Monday to continue higher from? Are we gonna already start rolling from these hourly zones, or are we gonna pull back all the way to the daily? Those are the things you have to wait for and pretty much flow with the market. Aussie and NZD, I need to see these ones develop a little bit more. Gold is also quite bullish. It has a weekly, daily, and hourly. So again, I don't think the weekly is gonna get pulled back all the way down here. So it's either gonna be from this hourly zone, or if that hourly zone fails, it's gonna seek daily and then potentially start pushing higher towards these all-time highs. So looking pretty good. The JPYs are having some short-term bearishness, but I think it's just short-term. USD JPY looks quite bearish, but once again, it's still tapping just right now into a weekly bullish imbalance and a weekly bullish OB. So it can definitely start reacting. Euro Yen, it's having a massive supply and demand sandwich because we're having a weekly bullish and then a daily bearish and then a hourly bearish as well. So it's gonna definitely need a lot more development in order to determine what is actually going to happen. Then GJ is actually looking like the best because it doesn't have a daily bearish zone. And on the hourly time frame, it can easily drive us into that weekly zone, right? So take a short into the weekly, close the trade here, and then from the weekly, look to see pretty much what is gonna happen. Is it gonna start reversing, giving you bullish signs, or is it gonna chop, maybe bearish? We have no idea, okay? SPX and NASDAQ, they both have weekly zones to potentially get tapped. And then the only thing to stop them is a hourly zone. So if that hourly zone right now holds and keeps pushing higher, that's good. On NASDAQ and SPX is the same. So monitoring patiently how that hourly zone is going to hold, what it's going to do. And if I start seeing signs of failure, you can immediately start looking short. SPX driving into that weekly and NASDAQ also driving into that weekly. And then from there, we can start expecting some bullishness. Although the market is right now printing on both pairs a monthly bullish imbalance, and I think we can potentially in the last week maybe of July we can consolidate, so that then in August we can be pulling back to that monthly imbalance that will get created. And US 30 just taking all-time highs, not the best price action, so definitely a skip. My favorite setups, once again, EU, GU, and GOAT for next week. Those are going to be the ones that I monitor. Let me know, guys, how you performed this week, what kind of trades you took. Did you manage to capitalize on these beautiful bullish moves after the CPI? Let me know what are your favorite pairs looking for the incoming week, and I'm gonna talk to you on the next one.